Welcome to chapter 14 of Literal to Living. Today we are going to be taking a look at Genesis chapter 21 in its entirety. That will be through verse 34. Because I have a large print Bible, sometimes I have to flip through multiple pages just to get through what normally would be just 2 pages, but it's like 4 pages in my Bible. So before we jump in, a quick word of prayer. Father, I'm so thankful just for another opportunity to learn more about you through the study of your word. As always, I pray for wisdom, clarity, and understanding in Jesus' name. Amen. Man, God has been showing up and teaching me so much through these first 13 chapters of Literal to Living, first 20 chapters of Genesis. Has been so much. I've read Genesis a number of times before, but I've gotten so much more out of it this time around and excited to continue to get more. All right, from the English Standard Version, let's get it. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at that time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. Let me just flip backwards for a moment. I think chapter 17, possibly. I think chapter 17 is where, let's see, that's beginning of chapter 17. He was 99 years old. And that's where it says, I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear next year. Abraham is going to be 118. Came back, age of the Lord, verse 9. Where's Sarah, your wife? She's in the tent. Come back this time next year. I don't remember how old she was. 90, I think. She was 90 when she had him. I can't remember. I'll go back and look it up. And when we come back around, maybe in the next chapter of the Literal to Living next week, I will have that information ready. I can't remember right now. Verse 8, and the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot. A bow shot. I'm assuming that means if you shoot a bow, that's however far it'll go. That's a bow shot. For she said, let me not look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now, therefore, swear to me, here by God, that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants or with my posterity, but as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. When Abraham reproved Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized. Hold on. You already know. Reproved. I think I know what it means, but, it's not a word that's in my everyday vocabulary. Well, I think the definition is in the Hebrew word. Well, not the Hebrew word, but it's telling me to go look at the word rebuke, the third entry. So I guess that kind of tells us right there what the word means. Rebuke or warn. And that was verse 25. When Abraham reproved or rebuked Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. Okay, there was a word that I meant to look up as well that I did not. I think it was posterity. Let's go ahead and break this out one more time. It said descendants and posterity. One entry for that word. It means posterity or progeny. Don't you just love it when they hit you with it like that? That doesn't really help me. And then if I look up progeny, it means the same thing. So I'm just going to quickly hit online really quickly and just see what that means. All future generations of people. Progeny is a descendant or the descendants of a person. So Abimelech was saying to him, swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or my descendants or with my future generations of people. So he ain't just trying to say, don't lie to me, don't cheat me, don't trick me. Don't do that to any of my people from here going forward as well. All right, so what's going on here? So let's run through it. It's not a lot of verses. Let's run through it. All right, so the birth of Isaac was foretold earlier. A year from this time frame, angel of the Lord had visited. Abraham was told that his wife Sarah was going to conceive and have a child. She had laughed, was questioned about why she laughed, and she said, no, I didn't laugh. And the angel of the Lord was like, no, but you did. End up saying, is there anything too hard for the Lord? So she had this child at her old age. Abraham was 100. I think Sarah was like 90 or 91. I don't remember exactly. Isaac means laugh. He got circumcised when he was 8 days old. That was part of the covenant that Abraham had made with God. So you had Hagar and her son Isaac. They got the boot. I think I've looked up the word weaned before, and I don't think it gave me anything other than weaned. I know weaned, like, you wean somebody off of something. I know that that's what it means as far as I understand it. But I don't, as far as back in the Bible day, I think when I looked this up before, because I saw it somewhere else. Let me hit Blue Letter Bible. Let me see what it has there. This is Genesis 21, and when the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned, to deal fully with recompense, to deal out to do to recompense, repay, to wean a child, to be weaned, to ripen, to bear ripe on the day that the child was weaned. I'm going to assume that this time frame, because they're doing a great feast, I'm going to assume that this has to do with like a transition, like a coming of age type thing or something. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. That because as the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Yeah, it's just not enough information for me there to understand. I can go break out some commentaries and all of that, but I'm not gonna do that right now. So she got the boot. Her and Isaac. She was given some water and some bread. She ran out of what she had. She didn't want to watch her child die, so she put him under a tree and she went a bow shot away. Bow shot away. That's funny. Like an old country term. And angel of the Lord said they heard the voice of the boy. And God said to her what he had said to Abraham, you're gonna make him into a great nation as well. And she found a well. She went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy something to drink. Next, you had a treaty with Abimelech, or a covenant with Abimelech. He's like, hey, God always doing something great with you. Ain't that how it always is? Somebody want to ride your coattail. They see something going good for you, so they want to get in on the action. Like he literally said, at that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all you do. Therefore swear to me, here by God, that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants. Like this dude is a Philistine. It says, in verse 32, then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Okay. Again, not a lot happening here. So let me take a look at something here, comparison-wise. So when they made that agreement that they made, says Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. He said 7 ewe lambs. I wonder why he did the sheep and the oxen and used that to make a covenant. Excuse me. So in a previous chapter, you saw something a little bit similar, but not quite the same, where God made the covenant with Abraham, where God told Abraham to get these get these items. I think it's in 17. Why can't I find this? It's in the part where he said, how will I know? Here it is. Chapter 15, verse 8. Abraham said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I shall possess it? He said to him, bring me a heifer 3 years old, a female goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And, as you get ready to make a covenant with him, those items were used. All right, let me turn this notebook on, write a couple things down here. I think I see 3 principles here. But before I jump into these points, I do want to just mention one thing. I don't think I ever talked about this back when it happened. So let me go back to, well, I don't have to go back to it, but back when, in chapter 16, when Sarai told Abram to go to her servant, and she conceived, and she ultimately ended up having a son named Ishmael. Like, that created a very crazy situation for us, and it's still a problem today. 2 Abrahamic religions, Christianity and I don't know if you'll call it a sister religion or brother religion, but I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. The Islamic faith. One from Isaac and one from Ishmael, and they've been fighting ever since. So much, like throughout history, has been occurring at the hands of these 2 religions against one another, and so it's just kind of crazy. And it all started here in Genesis, because somebody ain't want to be patient and wait on God to fulfill His promise on His own. It's His plan, so stop scheming and start trusting. That was a principle a few weeks ago. Okay, let me go ahead and take some notes. I'll see y'all on the other side of this note taking. All right. Let's jump into it. So I'm going to go back a little bit to Genesis chapter 17 to get into this first point. Genesis chapter 17 and 15. And God said to Abraham, as for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of people shall come from her. Kings of people shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said to himself, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? Well, there's the answer to that question. Now let's go to Genesis 18 and 9. Angels of the Lord talking to Abraham. They said to him, where is Sarah your wife? And he said, she's in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? The principle here is to trust God beyond what seems impossible. Right here in 21, starting at verse 1, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. This wasn't a numbers game. It wasn't about probability. It was about promise. She conceived and bore a son in her old age. It seemed like it was biologically, socially, emotionally, any kind of you want to put on it, impossible. But her disbelief, it turned into joy. Her life became a living witness that God's word can overcome any human limitation, right? Trusting beyond impossibility means refusing to let delay, refusing to let age or circumstance define our fate. It's not really about ignoring reality. It's really about just putting our hope in something deeper than that. And that we putting our hope in is that God is faithful and his timing is perfect. Sarah was advanced in age, but God restored her body to bear a child. She was once called barren, but now she is called the mother of nations. She waited for decades, and now she received exactly what she was promised. Now, trusting God beyond what seems impossible, that could look a lot of different ways. And, sometimes I've heard people having conversations, I'm never going to get married. I've desired to be married. I'm never going to get married. Well, the world might call something too late, but God could bring that about in your life at a time where God feels that the time is right. I've known people that have looked for opportunities for new jobs. As a matter of fact, I have on my prayer list right now one of the brothers in my crew. That's a small group at our church who's praying for an opportunity for a career change. He wants to do something that's more creative. That's his desire. And he's wanted to do that for a long time, and it hasn't happened yet. But you know what? It doesn't mean it's impossible. There's an improbability associated with it, But that's a numbers game. God can overcome all of that. Just because we think it can't happen doesn't mean it can't. Or doesn't mean it can. You know what I mean? I'm saying all of that wrong. Just because we think it cannot, God can make it happen. There's so many different ways that can show itself. The next principle, just taking a look at what was happening with Ishmael right here. So let's start out talking about value. Sarah saw no value in Hagar and her son Isaac, to the point where she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." Now, Isaac saw value because, this was his son. This was displeasing to him. One didn't see value, one saw value. But God said to Abraham, "Don't be displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Do whatever Sarah tells you to do. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named, and I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring." The principle here is God honors what others overlook. Yes, some didn't value, specifically Sarah. She didn't value Isaac, but God honored him anyway. He honored what Abraham valued versus not honoring what Sarah didn't value. After all, this was Sarah who decided to create this situation, but God still decided to bless Abraham's seed anyway. And I talked about the problem that it caused, but God made a nation of him as well. And Ishmael was sent away. He wasn't forsaken, though. God heard his cry, responded to that need, and affirmed the promise to make him a great nation as well. This wasn't the first time that it was said that he was going to be made a great nation. Chapter, now I'd be thinking of my stuff and I don't write it down. So then I had to go back and try to find it again. Just know it wasn't the first time that it was mentioned. I'm not going to go and find it. Yes, the covenant was with Isaac, but God's compassion, he still had compassion for Ishmael. So that's why I say God honors what others overlook. And there's so many situations where that could show up. I'm on Threads a lot, looking at different comments. I see so many arguments, so many conversations, and this is one that I see a lot. Single parents, single mothers specifically, dealing with life, trying to, raise their kids. And I often hear people talk about, I hear guys talking about, you need to try to figure out, making it with your kid's father. You shouldn't be looking for a single man, and, just dumb stuff. It just dumb stuff. But that's not what this is about, what I'm about to say. But, just dealing with those hardships, God gives you strength and God gives you provision. A really good friend of mine adopted her cousin. There was a need and she adopted her cousin. I think it's a very admirable thing that she did. She's still relatively young, and there are so many other things that I'm sure she desires to be doing in her life right now, but she sacrificed to take care of her cousin. He's like 9 years old, and I'm always astonished with the level of grace and the level of provision and the level of strength that God gives her to be able to handle what she has to handle as a new mother. You go from not even being in a relationship to adopting a child, right? So it's always amazing just watching how that works. Being potentially overlooked for either a promotion or having opportunities where you do great things, but you're never recognized. Those are types of things that occur in our life where sometimes we feel overlooked, and we want to be honored as well. So many ways that these things could play themselves play themselves out in our lives. It's just so many different ways. The last principle, I'm going to go back to, what was did I not write the verse? I hope I wrote it on the next page. I sure didn't. I think I know what it is. In Genesis 13, Abraham and Lot, they separated. They had to, it says in 13 and 5, it says, and Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support both of them dwelling together, for their possessions were so great they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were dwelling in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I'll go right. Or if you take the right hand, then I'll go left. So back when that happened, I had a principle that was when conflict arises, choose peace over catastrophe. And one of the things that occurred ultimately was Abraham and Lot, they separated peacefully to avoid escalation. The focus was on preventing catastrophe, preventing destruction. But the principle for Genesis 21, this situation with Abimelech was resolving conflict peacefully. And this situation was more so the glare on my notebook. So it's a digital notebook, so sometimes the glare hits it. I can't see it. Resolving conflict peacefully. So it wasn't just about avoiding catastrophe in this situation. It was more so about developing a lasting peace through honest dialogue, and the focus was on constructive resolution instead. Come on, notebook. So it started out, obviously, God is with you in all you do. But where the peaceful resolution came, so Abimelech first recognized that in Genesis 21 and 22, God is with you in all that you do. So first off, he ain't trying to come at Abram like that. Now, it says Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. He's sitting here with his commander of his army, and he goes to Abraham, God is with you in all you do. So he coming and seeking peace, right? He's trying to establish a covenant with somebody that he knows God is with, right? I'm sure he's heard. And while they're on their path to peace, there's a conflict that Abraham needed to address, and that's the situation at his well. And, he didn't create further contention. He addressed it. But when he addressed it, he worked to make peace still while he was addressing it as well, by offering the gifts, so to speak. When he, took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelech said, what's the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you set apart? And he said, take these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's really more so the presence of awareness, humility, integrity. Peace isn't something that you assume. It's something you make. It's something you build. It's not by happenstance that peace occurs. Peace is something that's made. And this was something that was first sought after from Abimelech, because clearly he knew who God was. It's kind of weird though, because arguably this ain't the same Abimelech, right? Because in the previous chapter, it was Abimelech, king of Gerar, that took Sarah, and that was the one that God came to that Abimelech in the dream. But now it's talking about Abimelech, returning to the land of the Philistines and having Phicol, the commander of the army. So it makes me wonder, are these the same people? I mean, I ain't got no reason to believe they're not the same people, but if it's the same person, you know who God is. He knows who he is. Yeah, he knows. I told y'all last time, God is a G. Okay. I'm warning you, I'll be forced to thrash you. If you watched last time, you know why I said that. But resolve conflict peacefully. Man, my notebook, I'm trying to swipe or no swiping. So I'm using a remarkable Paper Pro. So because it works on a certain level of magnetism, I use aftermarket covers, and sometimes they make it to where it doesn't want to work right. But resolving conflicts peacefully, obviously that can come up in a whole lot of different ways. A whole lot of different ways, whether you in business, whether it's unclear expectations, and you got to negotiate terms, or you got a church or a ministry that got internal tension, and you got to have honest conversation. Workplace agreement. A workplace disagreement. I'm reading my words wrong. Workplace disagreement. You can lead to it can have gossip and resentment, but instead, you try to meet and clarify things and agree on terms, stuff like that. I remembered watching something online. These neighbors disputing over a property line, because of where a fence was placed at. Just crazy stuff. Conflicts can be resolved peacefully in a lot of situations. Sometimes, you got to get other people involved because you don't have any other choice. But the 3 for the day, let me go back to the front. Trust God beyond what seems impossible. And that was shown in Sarah finally having that baby. Little Isaac was born. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? No, it's not. And second, God honors what others overlook. Ishmael was sent away, but he wasn't forsaken. He wasn't forgotten. God, honored what he had said he was going to do as far as making him a nation as well. And finally, resolving conflict peacefully. In the previous situation with Abraham and Lot, to avoid catastrophe, they had to separate. But in this situation, they had to make peace. They had to build it. They had to work towards it so that it would be there instead of just assuming that everything was going to be all right. Sometimes we have to actually resolve it. Peace doesn't resolve itself. Conflict doesn't resolve itself to make peace. We have to resolve conflict peacefully. You have to make it happen. And sometimes, people like to, it'll just work itself out. No, it won't. No, it won't. Sometimes we have to take steps to make things happen. All right, so if you've been rocking with me for a while, you know what's next. Maybe not. All right, so you might have got something different. If you did, I'd love to hear about it. Please share in the comments anything that you'd like to share, and I'll talk to you over there. Again, my name is Alexi Johnson, and I want to thank you for watching today's chapter of Literal to Living. If this blessed you, consider subscribing so you'll be notified as new chapters drop, usually every Tuesday morning. If it's not quite for you, but you know someone else who may benefit, feel free to share it with them. Finally, it is my sincere prayer that these chapters not only help us to understand God's word, but to live it out. So I'll see you next time as we continue to go from literal to living. Thanks.